A lot of things. One thing that I think the black family doesn't talk about is separation and divorce, although it happens. It happens to the point where, yeah, I don't, we don't really talk about separation and divorce and how it affects the children that are involved. You know, I don't know if it's just a black thing, a white thing, a lower income thing, immediate. I think it just affects everybody all the same. You know, but depending on where you are, you might get a little bit different effect. I don't really care to talk about it, but I feel like it's important for other people to hear from a child's perspective at the time. My mother and father separated when I was a young kid. Luckily, I had uncles to help me grow while my father was away. And as I always say, this is no knock on my father. He had to do what he had to do at those times to become whoever he needed to be. My father and I are really good friends now. Really good father-son relationship. So I'm just telling you guys about what I remember of my past. I remember my father leaving. I remember my father not coming or not being there for Christmases, birthdays, all that stuff. And I brought this into the conversation because I attribute a lot of my success in athletics to my father not being around. I had a lot of rage I was filled with. I can remember, and you guys probably won't believe this, the people that know me, I can remember a family reunion on my father's side of the family, and I got into a fight with my father. I mean, I was 12. I was the one fighting. He wasn't really doing nothing to him. He wasn't fighting me back or nothing, which I realized that because then I seen him fight other people, and the outcome was really different. So as I grew up, I realized that he really wasn't fighting me back. But that's the kind of rage I had. It took an uncle at the time to say, nephew. And I really respected my uncle because, when my father was away, he still spent time with me, took me out, did different things. So I really respected my uncle at that time. More so than my father. Now, should I have? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. That's up for another discussion. But my uncle said, nephew, stop. And I stopped on a dime because, like I said, that's the respect level, that I had. But my father left when I was 7 and it filled me with a lot of rage, made me focus more and more on sports and athletics. And in my mind, whenever I would prepare for that sport, I was preparing myself saying that I'm not going to be anything like my father, nothing like it. So I prepared myself saying I'm not going to be anything like my father because in my eyes at this time, he was one of the worst people around simply because he couldn't be there for me and my sister. Now, at the same time, I watched my sister go through some health concerns that I won't mention because that's her business. And she was young. I was 7, 8. She was 15, 16. So we were both going through it with a single mother without our father not there. Now, we don't know what happened between our mother and our father. But at that age, you don't really care what happened between your mother and your father. You just know that your mother and your father are not together. And you're with your mother, so it has to be your father's fault because he's gone. He's the one that's not in the house. I'm sure plenty of people, can relate to this. Kids respond differently. I wasn't one of those kids that started to go out and get in trouble and do different things, but kids seek attention in different ways. And luckily, I had uncles that would put that belt on me. They would put that belt on me if I wasn't doing right and acting right. And I say that, but I can't think of one time neither one of my uncles whipped me, but they made me feel like they would whip me if I did certain things. And I was afraid of my grandmother and afraid of my mother because they were kind of strict and mean. So they kind of kept me, and I thank them for that. They kept me on the straight and narrow. But when it came to my rage, my anger, it was channeled into sports and playing football and basketball and baseball. And I was never the one to really compete against others for the same positions or whatever. I already knew I was going to win. My competition then was with myself to be the best self version of me I could be. And that self version was beating whatever version I thought my father was. So I guess the competition wasn't with the others on my level, it was against my father. So now I understand when people say to me, hey, you always acted older than you actually were, because I was never in competition or never seeking to beat the things that were around me, the people that were around me. I was always seeking to be better than whatever image I had created of who my father was. And I love him to death. And he's told me stories since then of times where he came and sat in the driveway on Christmases and couldn't find it in himself to come in. And you got to really put yourself in his shoes and be able to understand, what he went through, what he was going through. As a man right now, being in the house with my kids and being in their lives, if there's something I can't provide for them, I feel really, 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 really bad that I can't do that. So to some degree, I can understand what he's going through and never trying, what he went through back then, and never trying to discredit it. But I'm going to say this to parents who have kids the parents are not together and you have kids, y'all separate or whatever. And I watch this as I watch people now, as I'm an older adult looking at them, and they're so concerned with the actions of the parents that they're not concerned enough with what their actions are making the child go through. Like, for example, I know two parents. They both love the kid. However, they both give each other heck and talk trash about, one another in front of the kid, so much so that the kid can play both of them. So the problem here is not the kid, not the love they give the kid, it's the treatment of each other. Now, I can see if he was a deadbeat father. I can see if she was a deadbeat mother. But neither one of them are deadbeats. They do all that they can for the child. And they just can't do anything together for the child. They can never see eye to eye for the child. However, it ain't about seeing eye to eye. It's about him being right, her being wrong, or her being right, him being wrong. I mean, I can't fathom, one person, like let's say I'm the father of a child and I buy him some brand new shoes and I send him home with the brand new shoes. And the mama said, you can't wear those because you got them from your daddy. But at the same time, women will go out in this society and say men ain't doing what they supposed to do about their kid. But how are you opening the doors to allow them to do whatever it is, that they need to do, for their children? So a lot of times when we checking other people, we got to check ourselves too, because in efforts of trying to be right, we ain't even right. So we got to be able to get right to make the whole situation right. And it's a bigger picture when you're dealing with children. But I'm gonna get off these people and go back to what I try to get you guys to understand. When parents separate, let's make sure we focus on the kid, because I was filled with a lot of rage. That rage also pushed me to be the best athlete that I could be at that time. And no, I wasn't a high profile athlete as far as going to the NFL or whatever. I did play college football. Probably could have played, a little bit more football, but I didn't. That ain't neither here nor there. The rage forced me into, I can remember workouts where I would vomit after or during the workout and didn't feel like I was getting an adequate workout for the sport if I did not vomit. Now, my father leaving, the rage that it built in me forced me again, like I said, into playing sports. Now, that took me into what I think is the greatest team sport in the world, football. I mean, we can argue all day if football is the greatest team sport or not, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to win that argument because it is.